Perfect.
That way, we'll be recording when we do get started so that those that missed it or want to check it out later can. Well, I have a surprise for you, and it's going to be that I am going to be facilitating this conversation today. Typically it is Kelly, and she does a fantastic job. But she had, she's assisting a friend at an appointment, and it took much longer than anticipated. So she is planning to join us, but will likely be late. So she sent me her slides and asked if I would facilitate. And I said, yes, even though I meant no. Here you go. Yeah, of course I will. And then you go, what? So she has shared her slides with me. And so I will go ahead and get started. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Friday and joining us in this space. Welcome to our SPDIG Family Partners meeting. These are meetings of PTIs, Parent Training Information Centers, and the CPRCs who partner with their state's SPDIGs. So let me get to her next slide. And of course, in this work, we have some key players, those from OSEP, and I hope I don't mess up this name, Sun Young An, Carmen Sanchez, and Jennifer Coffey, who is joining us today. And then the folks from Signet, John Lind, and Kelsey Lieb.
It's live, just so you know.
Live, that's what I meant.
Yep.
Thank you, Jennifer. And so for today's agenda, we have a little check-in activity that we're going to do. We're going to be getting some updates from OSEP regarding the SPDIG webinar from OSEP. And we're going to be sharing with us about the Deep Family Engagement webinar. Myself and my colleague Karen will be doing a short presentation on ECAC, much like what Michelle did the last time we gathered for Peak. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing what you did before, because that was a good template for us to run with. And then we're going to be talking about planning our future work together. And the goal is going to be to help kind of shape specific actions and goals for our groups, our group of PTIs and CPRCs, and essentially our role in the bigger SPDIG and SIG network. And then Jennifer is going to be talking to us about P2P, the purpose to practice liberating structure activity. And save the date, because our next meeting will be March 22nd, 2024 at 11 a.m. And I'm just going to move your beautiful faces out of my way. Whoops, I thought there was a check-in activity. There it is. Okay. So for the check-in, the activity is to annotate and stamp your state. And I haven't annotated in a while, so let's see if I can do this.
And for anyone who do you think everyone knows how to do it in the room?
It's been a while since I've done it.
So for me, I think I have to go to the more.
And I have a little icon that says annotate with like a little pencil.
That's so funny. I'm not even finding it on mine right now. Maybe if I dig down the chat. Notes.
But in the past, I've had a little stamping.
Oh, yeah. Kelsey just said go into the view, which is on the top right. No, that doesn't do it for me. Oh, no, sorry. So view options at the top. And then there's annotate under the view options once you pick that little arrow. Does that make sense to everyone?
I don't see any. Let's see, somebody's got something in the chat here. I click view options and annotate.
Yeah, I went to the pencil and I colored in Colorado. Can you guys see?
It's masterful.
Yes.
My little green check is not
Oh yeah,
barely visible.
I'm gonna give myself give myself a couple diamonds. There we go. Michelle, what's the weather like in Colorado right now?
8 inches of snow overnight, which is
Wow.
crazy. But it's gonna be like 50s and 60s next week. So yeah. We're the state of this. We can go through 74 seasons in one day.
It's a calling card.
It's been very, well, we've had a lot of rain in North Carolina this week, but it's been almost muggy. It's weird for January. All right, so I see we got Colorado, we got
Montana's here, but I don't see how to do it.
Yeah, just in case it's helpful.
Up in
So at
Maine.
the top, it says you are viewing Amy Combs' screen. To the right of that, it says view options. There's a little arrow. You choose that. And then it's the third one down. It says annotate. You click that, and then it shows up on the left. And then one of the bottom options is, you can do an arrow or the pencil or whatever. Got a lot of hearts. And then Kelsey also helped by giving us something in the chat.
Yep. And if it's you say, okay, I can't figure it out, just tell us in the chat where you're at. But now I see, yeah, lots of coloring showing up. And I think the background makes it a little hard to see where some of folks are saying they're from. So yeah, we got pretty good representation across the country. Right. Let's see if I can get out of annotate here. Oh, look at this. All of your coloring showing up on I'm not sure how to get rid of that.
That's funny.
Nobody tell Kelly that happened. Does anybody know how to make that go away?
Oh gosh.
Because well,
Everybody
the
has
good
to
news-
use their eraser to erase there.
well, the good news is I am
Yeah.
going to stop sharing because Karen Monty, who's going to share her screen, so we can go ahead and do our little spiel about ECAC. So I will go ahead and stop sharing, and maybe that will, when I pull the slides back up, maybe they will have gone. But Karen, I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and we'll get going.
Let's see, are you guys seeing my whole screen here?
We are.
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Karen Montague, and I am ECAC's North Carolina State Improvement Program Project Lead.
And Karen is a pleasure to work with. My name's Amy Combs, and I am the newly appointed executive director here at ECAC, the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center, and excited to hang out in this space. Not as excited to jump in for Kelly, but I'm glad that I have a warm audience. This is the right folks to jump in and wing it with. So today we're going to share a little bit about ECAC. I think we have allotted maybe about 15 minutes, so I am going to try and talk fast because I do tend to overtalk, and I don't want to leave Karen scrambling at the end. Trying
You
to
never overtalk, Amy. You're good.
do. And so we're just going to share a little bit about who we are and what we do. ECAC is a statewide nonprofit parent organization that is committed to improving the lives and education of all students, but with a special emphasis on children with disabilities and or special health care needs. Next slide, Karen. So we've got a lot, much like you guys, we have a lot going on under our roof. We've got our hands in all kinds of things, but ECAC does serve as North Carolina's Parent Training and Information Center. North Carolina only has one PTI. I know some of the larger states have more than one. We just have one, but we do have two CPRCs in our state. And so, as you know, under the PTI grant, all of that work is really geared towards helping families navigate early intervention, special education, the transition to adulthood, helping them to understand their rights, navigate systems, processes, getting connected to community resources, things of that nature. So all of that work, a lot of that, most of that is really individual assistance to families. But also we create materials We do a variety of webinars and workshops, and also do a lot around youth engagement and also family engagement. And then we also have the Family to Family Health Information Center grant, or the F2F. And all of that work is really helping families to navigate medical systems and all that complicated stuff, where waivers and SSI and SSDI, and helping them make heads or tails out of that information. And that is funded by HRSA, the Health Resources and Services Administration. And we've got 100 counties in North Carolina. And here, I'm trying to advance my slides. I can't do that. So ECAC also partners with Parent to Parent of Georgia, Georgia's PTI, as the Region B Parent Technical Assistance Center. And so when I was looking at Michelle's previous one, I was like, dang, you guys have, was it 29 states in your region?
Yeah, and what did I say, across 4 time zones? So good luck scheduling the Zoom. Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah, that is pretty significant. I was like, wow. But these are the states that are in our Region B family, if you will. And so they are awesome to work with. And so as TA providers, you know, we're helping them, essentially helping them fulfill their mission, helping them navigate nonprofit world and all the good thing, their grants and all those things that come with that. Oh, I keep trying to advance my slide. Next slide. Okay, so we got, like I said, we got a lot going on here, and this doesn't even represent all of the things, but we do have numerous funded partnerships at ECAC, and those partnerships are with folks that also have a desire to improve outcomes for students with disabilities and their families. And so one of our funded partnerships is with North Carolina Voc Rehab to deliver the STAR program. These are student transition assistance resources, or PREETs, pre-employment transition services. And so in that contract, we are actually delivering PREET services to students virtually. We realized that there was a need because we have a lot of homeschooled children in North Carolina. We have a lot of students that are enrolled in private schools. We now, after COVID, a lot of schools kept on with some virtual academies, and also have a lot of students. We've got some students in DODEA programs, and we have a lot of rural districts that, because of the staff shortages with VR, they're not able to access some of those PREET services in those underserved areas or rural districts. And so we offer these classes virtually, and we do job exploration counseling, self-advocacy classes, workplace readiness 101, and workplace readiness 201. We also have numerous contracts with our state education agency, the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. We typically, here in North Carolina, we refer to them as DPI. And so one of those contracts is directly with their Office of Exceptional Children. And in that contract, we are partnering with them on a variety of webinars. The 2 that we currently have lined up, we're doing one with them on dispute resolution and one with them on the extended content standards or the adapted curriculum. I'm also going to be creating some materials for them around Child Find and a document questions that families can ask about behavior. We have another contract with them regarding the North Carolina Deaf Blind Project. And so this is a program that is with our state education agency, ECAC, and East Carolina University. And that work is all around serving families that have a child that are on the deaf-blind census. So they have a combination of vision and hearing impairment. And a lot of our piece to that work is around family engagement. Working with those families, providing opportunities for those families to be in spaces where they can share their story, use their voice, and really getting them connected to some of the unique resources that are available to that population. And then the third contract that we have with them is with their North Carolina State Improvement Project. And this is where our work with the SPDIG plays out the heaviest. And Karen's got a whole bunch of slides where she's going to dive in and talk about some of the things we're partnering with them on. Another contract that we have is with Lens NC, or Learning for Equity, a Network for Solutions. And this work is all geared towards the intersection of race and educational equity, and really about trying to come up with solutions to improve those outcomes for students of color that also experience learning differences. And then we got a bunch of short-term projects, too many to possibly list. But certainly we've got a few things that we're working on with some state covered mini grants regarding Medicaid, a couple where we've been written in with other groups that have received PCORI grants. We also, PTC, the Parent Training and Information Center of Virginia, they have the RSA grant. We've got a small contract with them to carry out some of their work and disseminate materials and trainings around their transition to adulthood. All kinds of things. We stay pretty busy, and we're always pursuing other things. You can go to the next slide, Karen. But one thing that is an overlap in pretty much every program and project that we work on is family engagement, youth engagement, parent involvement, leadership. All of that carries over into pretty much everything that we do, because we know that the research is pretty clear that we know when true family engagement is happening, we know that we see better outcomes, and whether that means better attendance, higher graduation rates, students going on to pursue more post-secondary options, better behavior, all of those things. And so we do try to embed that in pretty much all of our work. And so we have a family engagement manager, and she's not tied to one particular program or project or budget, because it does cross over all things. Karen, I don't know if you're able to.
I know my screen's frozen. Let me stop sharing and share again. I don't know what just happened.
The next slide essentially had, Family Engagement Month is in November, and so we certainly hit that heavy in November, but we do things all year long. And so I was just going to highlight some of the things that we do every November. Is we reach out. We don't reach out in November. We actually reach out 6 months before we reach out to the governor to get the proclamation announcing that November is Family Engagement Month. And we keep reaching out earlier and earlier, and we keep receiving it about 2 minutes before midnight on October 31st. But we actively pursue getting that into place. We create Family Engagement Month calendars. We have some specifically for early childhood families and teachers. We have some for elementary age, middle and high school students. And we also create a family engagement calendar specific for school staff, giving them ideas of things that they can do. And this year we made it where it was actually fillable, that they could either use what we pre-populated in there, or if their school or district was doing something specific and they wanted to change that calendar date to something that they were doing, they were able to customize that. And we make those available in English and Spanish. And we also do a contest every year called Tell Us Something Good, where we reach out to districts and their families, and the nomination has to come from a family. Tell us something good that your school is doing around family engagement in your exceptional child. And the school gets $1,000, and the parent that submits the winning one gets $200. And so that's always good, especially in our world, because folks are not typically calling us to tell us what's going good, right? That's why a lot of our staff have, essentially secondary trauma and some, compassion fatigue, because folks are not calling us to say, hey, everything's going good, my kid's getting everything they need. We're typically hearing from folks where there's now conflict or confusion, or a real dispute happening. And so it is nice to do this, because we do know there's so many folks out there doing wonderful things. They're just not typically who we hear from. So it's a good opportunity to hear the positive that's happening out there. So yes, I would be happy to send all the stuff. I'm not sure why Karen's screen is not cooperating to let her share it, but Karen, I can probably pull it up and share it for you. So let me minimize.
You know what? That would be great, because I don't know what is going on.
Okay.
I apologize.
let me, because I got Kelly's PowerPoint. Let
I
me
know.
find,
And we had planned this out, guys, that I was going to share.
He was gonna be the sharer.
Ah,
That's okay. I'm coming.
okay.
And slideshow. Get through here. This is what I was going to show you when I was talking, but those are some examples of the family engagement calendars. But what I can do is send out a follow-up email that includes links to these calendars, as well as what we roll out when we do the Tell Us Something Good contest. And now I will get out of the way and let Karen talk specifically about our work around SPDIG with the North Carolina State Improvement Project.
I apologize, you guys. Okay, so our North Carolina State Improvement Project goals, we have these 4 goals. All of them are centered around family engagement. And one of the main goals that I work with is the pre-service teachers, goal number 4. And also we work with the training for leadership and development coaching supports for administrators, which we are going to actually, we have in the grant, we have IEP capacity training that we're going to be doing in 3, we tried to pick the rural counties so that we could talk about the IEP process, family engagement, communication, and meaningful. So that's what we're going to be. I'm excited to be doing that with those administrators. Our first one is the end of this month in Beaufort, I think. So I'm really excited about that. Next slide. So like I said before, our partnership is centered around family engagement. And in our partnership, we hope to make family engagement meaningful, because everyone does family engagement and we don't want it to be a checkbox. It has to be intentional. And it's our hope that when we talk about family engagement, when we do trainings and everything, that we all know, and everyone could probably, you know, say this, and it's when there's family engagement, there's positive outcomes for our students. But to expand on that, it's for our students, teachers, families, administrators, and districts. So it branches out. So it's our hope that family engagement is centered in everyone's work, and it's not just a checkbox. And when there's meaning for family engagement, that means students and families are there at the table, communicating with people of power, which is usually the school, at the very, very beginning when they're planning things. So, and it's also, you know, it's improving outcomes for all of our students with disabilities. We work with educators, students, professionals, and we want them to implement the best practice for family engagement. Next slide. So we do this by our indicator 5 is the indicator where school districts, you know, have to prove that they have meaningful family engagement and that parents feel like they're heard. So we ask PSUs to collaborate with ECAC around the research family engagement strategies. And I'll tell you about one of those strategies that we use to support our PSUs. Holding professional development, and that's our IEP capacity team training that we're going to be doing that I just mentioned. Implementing family engagement strategies into specific courses. I work with a group of wonderful parents, and they've all participated in our ECAC Telling Your Story training. It's called Parents as Leaders Telling Your Story. And so after they complete the training, they graciously agreed to be a part of our Parent Speakers Network. And they participate in class visits on college campuses, that we partner with and tell their unique family stories to pre-service teachers on what it is to actually parent a child with a disability. In that, we provide parent panels. The students are very engaged, and it's just so important that they communicate with families of students who have different disabilities before they even step foot in the classroom. And that's going to help not only the teacher, but it's going to help with teacher retention. So it's not a culture shock. It's gonna help with the overall class climate, school climate, as far as everyone being successful. Next slide. One of the tools that we use for our is our family engagement quality indicator checklist. So it's gone out as a sample up until this point of districts, but I think they're going to soon put it out to all districts. And this is like a little snapshot that a school can use to determine if they have the necessary structures for meaningful family engagement. It's a wonderful tool. It's on the DPI website. And all of these, so they go through the survey, the checklist, so to speak. And if they find any deficits in any areas, it's actually contains hyperlinks where they can click on the hyperlinks, and then they can actually get activities in order to foster those areas that they need fostering in. So it's an awesome tool. We update it. We try to change the links, but it's like a roadmap for schools, and you know, it's a self-assessment, so it has to be an honest self-assessment. And I would even, you know, we've talked about even having parents actually just look at this and do an assessment too. So you know, you can gauge, you know, what the school is thinking and what the parent is thinking, and it's not meant to be negative. It's meant to find out where you are, because that's what we always want. We want to find out where we are, and then if you have deficits, you know, decrease those deficits, use the tools, and move forward. Next slide. And that's about it. We could talk probably for about 2 hours specifically on Speakers Network, all the other resources. So if you need any information, please, you know, just contact me or Amy, and we'd be more than happy to talk more about all the wonderful things that we're doing at ECAC.
We're excited because we've got these big events coming up with these NC SIP folks, and they're giving us at each one, they're going to be in person, 4 hours to talk to teachers and pre-service teachers. Because that's one thing that we do here is that folks got all this training on all these things and you know, compliance and the regs and the processes and the systems, but didn't get a whole lot on having authentic engagement with families. And so,
Amy and oh, sorry, Amy and
Go ahead.
Karen, I had asked a question, but I know you all were sharing screens, so you probably didn't see it. How many educator preparation programs do you work with on the courses?
We have, oh, I have to use my finger.
I would say, is it 8
Not-
universities?
8 or 9,
8,
I think.
9?
Yeah,
that's
8 or 9
great.
universities right now. And let's see, UNC Pembroke, UNC Charlotte, NC State, ECU, Fayetteville State. I shouldn't have started naming them because now I'm not going to name all of them.
But we get the idea. We get the idea.
Yes.
You and I'm sure folks know this, but North Carolina has a lot of educator preparation programs. Not every state has that kind of output of teachers coming from the universities. So it's really nice to hear. One of my dreams is that, because this is one of my dreams, right? Is that we have these courses and families are talking and there's interaction. I think that makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
And then my next step to that dream is that folks being prepared, administrators and educators being prepared, actually go do a home visit for a full day, a walk in their shoes kind of home visit. Have you all seen that happening anywhere?
Where the educators are doing a home visit with the family?
Well, it's before they're teaching, right? Or before they're
Oh, yeah,
administrator. So when
gotcha.
they're being prepared. So it's not like, hey, how are you doing family? It's, hey, I'm being prepared. I want to learn from you. So a little
You know
different.
what, we're, I don't know of anyone doing it here, but you know what I think is
Mm.
really, really important? And sometimes they'll say it's intrusive, and then with COVID and all that, just taking a field trip to their communities and the students, where they live, where they're going to be teaching, because if you don't know about their communities and culture, and
Mm.
that's one thing that the Lens Network, which I did not touch on, it's increased our capacity for cultural training as an organization because we work with parents. But if pre-service teachers, if it's part of their program to hop in a van and drive
Yeah.
around their neighborhood,
Yep.
eat lunch, so they know where their kids are coming from.
Right.
And so they know that when, you have, you ask people to join a meeting or a PTA or PTO, that you have everyone sitting at the table who's in those communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Karen,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, you know, when just listening to what you just said is that grassroots effort, and we can never lose that, right? That,
Mhm.
you know, I know, like back when I moved from Florida initially to New Jersey to run the Big Brothers Big Sisters, the COO there in Newark, that's the first thing I did
Mhm.
for several weeks. As I went with the housing authority and took a van around the community so I
Mhm.
could learn and meet the people, because I knew typically when you looked at the breakdown on all spirits of diversity and different cultures, not everyone was the same.
Right, right.
So having to really get embed myself in the community so you can build that trust, right?
Mhm.
Go
Yeah.
to your families and asking them to sign their children up for a mentor, you know, or whatever. And it's similar, you know, that youth development piece. They understood, like, okay, I can trust you, right? So I think that those things, back to those grassroots efforts, is critical. I have a question, and Jennifer, I don't know if this is something
Mhm.
you might be able to assist with, because I know I've interacted with you and I know it's kind of your dream. How do we get other states to I mean, I love what North Carolina is doing, and I recognize they have a lot more prep programs. But I think you had said this at the last meeting or the one before that, and I was like, yeah, it's like that MTSS, and I don't dispute. I mean, we need to have
Right.
it. It's like all, like, so many states, and I know I presented last time in mine, and I love my state and have a great relationship with our Department of Ed and SPDA. They are so behind the eight ball with this part of that family engagement. And, you know, I'm at the meetings and they're open,
Yeah.
but I mean, this is just really amazing what your state is doing, Karen and Amy. I mean, I'm just really
Yeah.
so impressed. That family engagement is so key in this work.
Well, the interesting thing is that Colorado used to have really good programs.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what, maybe there's a university that's still doing it, I don't know. But I don't, it's, things kind of come in and then some people leave and then, people change. So I don't know what's happening with Colorado. But and New Mexico had really good programs too at one point in time. And this is like more the early days because I've been doing this for 17 years. But I've certainly been talking about it for 17 years, right? Like, and why more people don't pick it up. I think, I could go down the list of challenges, but you already know them, is that relationships with universities are hard for states to get going and to keep going, which is why North Carolina is really special that this has been, happening. I think that's one of the reasons. I don't know. Do you all have other ideas about what would keep this from happening?
I don't.
Yeah. On a positive note, I'm putting together my slide presentation for February 7th. We are gonna have, and I think I can put the table into the chat just so you can get a sense of it. So in 2020, I worked with Joanne Cashman at NASD to put together this series of webinars for states who might want to apply for a SPDIC. So we have something we call informational webinars. When we put out any notice, we have an informational webinar. It's often people reading through the notice, really, which I don't know how helpful it is, but we, it's like kind of a requirement to do that part. But with the SPDIC, we have a long history that Larry Wexler started where we actually talk about like, this is what a quality application looks like. These are the things you need to think about. And so we've just kind of carried that on. Whether or not it would meet legal standards, I have no idea. So this series of informational webinars even goes beyond that, not just like, hey, how you write a good application. It's like, here's all the things we want you to be thinking about as you're considering what you want to go into your SPDIC. And so one of our first session, and this was very, very, very much on purpose, is about family engagement. And the reason we did that is because, so often when you do a series, lots of people show up for the first one, and then you get that drop off as you go along. And so if that's the only one they're going to come to, that's the one that they can remember, use in some way.
Smart move.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I was trying to paste it into the chat. If it doesn't work, I'll share the document.
While you're
Yeah,
doing
it's
that, Jennifer, I was going to comment on what you were talking about earlier. I don't know that if it happens with pre-service teachers, but I can tell you, my son's 26, so this is a while ago, but when he entered preschool through the public schools, before he ever stepped foot in the classroom, that preschool teacher came to my house with her 2 TAs, came and spent time in my living room. And that was I really welcomed that. Because first of all, I was like, oh, I'm going to send my son to this place he's never been with people he's never seen. So it was important for him to kind of, okay, I've seen these folks before. I've seen them in my house. These are safe folks, but just kind of put me at ease. And then when he started kindergarten, the gen ed teacher and her TA also came out, and she did that for all of her students. I don't think we hear about that as much in this day and age, but I can tell you when we're talking to teachers, we're kind of telling them how important that piece is, and we realize they don't always have the bandwidth or the capacity or maybe even the approval from their administrators to do such a thing. But we've got there's all kinds of versions of a student profile out there. We have the big picture, and it's one of our most popular documents where families can kind of share information about their kiddo. Here's where he's doing great. Here's where he needs help. Here's what works. Here's what doesn't. Here's dreams. And I tell them, we can hand this out all day, but it's more meaningful if it comes directly from you, the teacher, that you want this information. And my daughter is a special education teacher, and I said to her, you need to fill out one of these for yourself and share that with your classroom. Let them know about you as well.
Right.
And always tell teachers, some districts they're limited what they can put on their website. Some teachers, you just get their title and their email. Some you don't even get the email, but some can include a bio. I said, for me as a parent, I want to know what brought you to this work. When I find out that, at school, I love it that you like to hike or travel, or you cook or whatever your jam is. But when I find out, I came to this work because I had a brother, or I worked at a camp, or I had a neighbor, or I watched whatever it is, I think sometimes that piece is a connection for families. I want to know that. And so I always encourage them, we want, obviously the family story matters, but the teacher story matters too. We want to, my kid's going to be spending a lot of time with you. And especially if I have a kid that can't communicate well, I want to know more about you. So sometimes I think just sharing a little piece of what your why for the work or what brought you to this. We all know it wasn't the money. So that, you know what I mean? But I think that can be so helpful for families as well.
Yeah, and administrators really need to be prepared with these notions, right? Like they need to get this in their instruction. And I would posit like 98% are not getting that. And it's interesting because the U.S. Department of Education has very few ways to get into administrator preparation. Like we have a lot of we prepare teachers, we prepare, people with doctorates, that kind of thing, but we don't have a lot of administrator preparation. So I've always tried to find places where we could insert ourselves, and there's just not the places. So it's one of those nets we need to crack.
And I think Amy, you actually, we had something in North Carolina where Amy presented to administrators, to first or second year administrators. And I don't know
Yep.
how that, but that's what it's all about. Because it has to be buy-in.
Yeah.
Buy-in on communication, and when you communicate, you find something, familiarity, goes into trust, and then boom, we're off.
Well, and an administrator can kill it. A teacher could come in wanting to do all these things
Yeah.
like you all were saying. And if the administrator's not supportive of them going to people's houses, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And especially in states where there's local control, every administrator, has that. So if they're not trained, and we found that in our state in particular, because we are a local control state, when administrators aren't trained around all the things we're talking about here, they can easily just say, no, we're not doing that, and many times there is a special ed director, but the administrator is still over special ed for their building. And there's a disconnect. So that's where we found training is such a key element.
Yep.
For that. Jennifer, what you posted, you're doing that with the SIPR. So when you were saying Carolyn, is that
So Carolyn and Joanne are both speaking alongside me. I think I'll probably speak first because I know I can go fast and I know I'll hit the points I want me to hit. I'm very control oriented because I've been doing this for a long time, and it's like how I want the SPDIGs to hear these things, but I only have control over what I say, and so it's like I'll get my stuff out. But if you all have thoughts about one thing I'm especially looking for is exemplary work. And, I know I can focus on North Carolina's work, and I was glad to be reminded. I mean, I'm their project officer, and, I kind of forgot for a second. So I can focus on North Carolina's work. Minnesota's doing some interesting work with Indigenous families and communities. But if there's other work that you think is great where the SPDIG is doing deep family engagement, I'm all ears. Oh, you don't have to register. Let me give you the Teams info. This is just one of those things that it's just my Teams, and I'm making it available for people. Sorry, I interrupted someone.
No, I was gonna say, I see some, I can probably copy that Teams and details on that from Kelly's notes in her slides and put that in the chat box if that helps. Unless you
Yeah,
already.
I have it. I think I have it here,
Oh,
so I can also
gosh,
do
I
it. So we
hate
can
that.
do
It tells me
both ways.
my message is too long for the chat. Let me try this.
Yeah, I just get that too. But I think I know how to get it on there. It just will take a second. Yeah, I know I kind of derailed our conversation, but I always have meetings at the same time as you all meet for some reason. And so, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. So thank you for letting me get off of the topic for a minute.
If that worked. Looks didn't come through like text, did it?
Here's a little picture. Oh, here, I found it.
Okay.
Okay. So deep family engagement. So this is, February 7th, 3 to 4 Eastern. Here's the Teams hyperlink because it doesn't let me do it like a nice one. And then I'll give you the rest of the information. Joanne Cashman has sent it out via NASD. Someone in OSEP made a really good point that early childhood folks might think they're not invited because it's NASD. And so we're going to talk to ITCA too and see if there's anything we can do about that. The only eligible applicant is an SEA. So that's the challenge, right? Like the age group that this SPDIG serves is birth through secondary transition. But the eligible applicant is the SEA. So if Part C lives in another agency, they'd have to partner with the SEA to send that application in. Oh yeah, Pennsylvania is a great example too. Good. So I was trying to think about this at 6 a.m. and obviously missing some things. Okay, good. Thank you everyone for helping me with that. All right, so I'm supposed to do liberating structures now.
Yep.
I think So it takes a little bit longer than 10 minutes to do it. So why don't I get you all thinking, and maybe we could do it, couple things. You could do it in your free time because it's an individual activity. You're doing it on a group Padlet in this case, but you do it individually, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to put the Padlet into the chat and, or the Jamboard, sorry. And I'm going to tell you about purpose to practice. And if you want to work on it some right after we get out of this meeting or whenever, that's fine. Or I'm sure Kelly wouldn't mind if we spent like 10 or 15 minutes the next time we meet at the beginning doing it. But I want to give you kind of the big idea behind it. Has anyone tried liberating structures before? No. Okay. It's one of those things, it's kind of an old technology, but I think it's really good. I haven't found anything else that is as good, but I would love to know of anything. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen for just a second. All right. Does everyone see purpose to practice?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is, you can see it's kind of an old website, but there's this whole menu of liberating structures, formats, or activities. And some of them you'll recognize because they've gotten big in culture, right? The 9 whys or the 5 whys. Maybe you've heard of shift and share or crowdsourcing. So some of these have really become popular over time. They've been around for a long time. I love the appreciative interviews, the conversation cafe, the fishbowl, open space technology that was big at one point. I haven't seen it lately. So purpose to practice. So when I was already on, and the big idea, and it talks about using this at the start of being a group, but I think you can use it any time that you want to figure out, going forward, how do we want to do our work together? What do we want to focus on? What really matters to us? And I think the idea that Kelly had was you all have been working together for a little while. You've shared a lot of your work. Some questions have come up. And what's the next step for the group? And so here is a picture of what it looks like and should look like on your Jamboard as well. And so you start with the purpose. And that's it. It like sounds like, oh, of course, start with a purpose, but how often do things actually start with a purpose, right? At least it's not explicit usually, which is why Simon Sinek's work on starting with why was so important. So why is it work important to you and the larger community? The principles are, what rules must we obey in pursuit of our purpose, right? So we will only have these kinds of conversations, or we will only, do such and such in order to get to our purpose. Participants, who must be included to achieve our purpose? Is it, do you need folks outside of the PTIs, CPRCs, etc., the OSEP funded parent centers, or is it just OSEP funded parent centers to be able to have these conversations? That's just an example. Structure, how will we organize to distribute control? So do we want to do it, not have it on Kelly all the time, but maybe pass it off to different centers each time to lead it? So lots of different ways to do it. Or you could, someone could be in charge for 6 months and then pass it to the next person. And practices, what are we going to do? What will we offer to each other, etc.? So that's really like down, so this is, we're going to work toward having this resource that we can all use. We can work toward using this toolkit for working with SPDIC, something along those lines. So what questions do you have about purpose to practice?
I guess my one thought, and I love it, and actually it's funny you mentioned the Simon Sinek, so that kind of is
Yeah.
how my all staff retreat. Now we're all reading
Mhm.
because we all have our why, but we lead with our what and how all the time,
Mhm. Yes.
and it causes cultural barriers. So something like this with like this group, I would assume there would have to be some sort of outside facilitation just to kind of bring us to this kind of like, again, starting with the purpose. Someone facilitating the exercise.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be the facilitator because I've done it a number of times. But So I'm the person, but the big idea is that you think and work individually, but on that shared document. And then I think the next step is where the real facilitation comes in, where you start putting it together as a plan. And what we've used before, it doesn't have to happen this way, but what we've used before is the VMOSA, which people like because it sounds like mimosa, I think. And it's vision, mission, objectives, strategies, and actions. And so you're just taking what everyone is included here and kind of creating the more, whatever people are used to with the vision, mission, objectives, and then just getting down, okay, here's our strategies and here's the actions we're going to take. So it's taking all this and putting it in a structure that's more common that people could use. And I think I don't think that's that hard either. I think the really hard thing is when you're doing your work, coming back to it on a regular basis and checking to see if what you're doing actually fits that vision that you have for yourselves, right? I think that takes some honesty and the ability of someone to put it out there. But that's on an ongoing basis, and I won't always be here. So I'm more the person who helps everyone get their ideas out there and then forms them in something that the group can use to guide the work, if that makes sense.
So Jennifer, the Jamboard or Padlet thing, are we doing that with the lens of us, this group, or are we looking at it with what we're doing in our state with our SPDIG partner?
It's for this group. The
Okay.
idea is like, we've been meeting
Yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah.
Is this, and I've done this with groups where they said, I don't want to change anything. I'm good with how we are. We don't want to do anything different. And it's like, that's fine too. But it's nice to, it's a way of having a check-in. And then sometimes having a little bit more of a more of an agreement in place about how you work together, how you're working cooperatively. Yeah, and Padlet's, I think most people know Padlet's pretty easy. You're just putting little stickies where
Yeah.
you want them. Kind of doesn't matter the color. I'm sure it could be more organized color-wise, but I have never gotten to that point. So if you would like work on this, now that we've been talking about it, maybe you have some ideas you want to get down right now. We'll also let Kelly know to give time at the beginning of the next meeting for people to finish things out. And then at that point, it's unlikely you would talk about it right then. You might have time to talk about it. But usually what I do is then I take it and then I put it into that format for people to react to, right? Because it's kind of messy to look at all the stickies and
Yeah.
easier to react to that VMOSA format. Does that sound workable to everyone, or is there, and tell me if there's a change. I made up the rest of that process with Kelsey's help. It's not necessarily the right process. So I'm very willing to make changes to my facilitation of this.
I think it's pretty clear. I think it's a cool exercise.
Good. All right. Well, thanks for letting me barge into your meeting. Thank you, Kelsey, for organizing us and getting the Purpose to Practice ready.
And sorry that you got stuck with me and didn't get your fully allotted time.
No, that was partially because of me, because I wanted to talk more about what you all shared. So that works for me.
Fantastic job. And Jennifer, we're excited you're here because you're in this and really trying to help our states. And we know you can't make your calendar's packed, but thank you for, listening and helping us elevate and move the needle forward together, because we will. It just takes time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that you all feel positively, optimistically about it.
Absolutely.
All right.
I'm excited for that thing on February 7th too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have it recorded and everyone can send it out anywhere. So it'll hopefully have even a bigger life than whoever shows that day.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Everybody
Bye.
have a great weekend.
Great job, Amy and Karen.
Ugh, thanks. Sorry,
Bye.
Kelly, you got what you got. Bye, guys.